Good evening, everyone. So pleased to have you here. I think for some of you, it may be the first time you've been in one of Grand Valley's newest building, the Bill Seidman, where the College of Business is located, and a wonderful venue for our dinner this evening. Very happy to have you here, and I'm very pleased to welcome us on behalf of the university, a new employee at Grand Valley, the new Vice President for Inclusion and Equity. His name is Jesse Bernal. He comes from California. He arrived in the middle of a snowstorm a few weeks ago, but he decided to stay anyway. And we're very excited to have him here because his job includes inclusion and diversity. And Katie and I have met with him a number of times because inclusion means inclusion of various religious traditions as well. And so we're excited to have him here and excited to have him here this evening to bring some greetings from the university. Jesse?
Thanks, Doug. So, good evening, and on behalf of Grand Valley State University and President Haas, I'm honored to welcome each of you to this evening's Interfaith Leadership Dinner. And a special welcome to our Mayor and Mrs. Heartwell, and Sylvia and Dick Kaufman, and others whose support makes this outstanding work of the Kaufman Institute possible. And also to our community guests, clergy, and faith leaders, thank you for your presence tonight. This evening, we honor the longstanding work of interfaith, religious, and civic leaders across West Michigan, and the pioneering work of the Kaufman Institute under the leadership of Doug Kinchy, who probably will not like that will be saying this, but in recognition of his 40 years of service to the university, was recently recognized through the naming of the P. Douglas Kinchy Hall of Science, which will open in August in Allendale. So if you haven't been to the Allendale campus, I hope you get out there in August and see the new building. As the Vice President for Inclusion and Equity at Grand Valley, a key role of mine is to work to ensure that we have a coordinated and sustained effort to advance our commitment to inclusion and community. I also see a primary function of my role as striving to understand the many experiences and perceptions on campus and being able to articulate a broad voice for our diverse community. And while our efforts have a needed central focus on historically underrepresented communities, Grand Valley, as Doug said, conceptualizes diversity broadly and includes efforts to support religious diversity and interfaith community development. The significant efforts of the Kaufman Institute and those we honor this evening to build constructive community and intergroup dialogue around faith is essential in supporting the development of a healthy climate, both on campus and across our broader community. The ability to model civil dialogue rooted in respect and humility is an exercise that advances in inclusion and equity for all of us. As I join this community now 2 months in, I am grateful for the work each of you and inclusion advocates in other areas have done to build a solid foundation to advance these efforts. As some of you may know, and some of you may not know, Grand Valley has been a pioneer in institutionalized support for diversity and equity. In fact, it was one of the first large public universities in the country to support a vice president cabinet level position with a unit portfolio-based structure, my position currently. And they did that 8 years ago. Even today, few universities have created such a high-level position. So the establishment of the Kaufman Institute is another example of this pioneering commitment to inclusion. As I transition here, I hope to continue to learn from community members across Grand Valley, Grand Rapids, and the greater Western Michigan community, and all of you in this room, to build on the groundwork we have all set. Our work for equity is interconnected. Interfaith and religious community justice is inherently connected to efforts for racial justice, gender equity, and supporting the success and development of other community-based efforts. So we all have a stake in this work towards social justice and equity. And building relationships and enhancing collaboration and coordination across Grand Valley State University, Grand Rapids, and West Michigan is essential to position our university as a model for equity and inclusion. I am honored to call all of you partners in this work. Thank you for your support of the Kaufman Institute, and welcome tonight again.
Last year was the first Interfaith Awards Dinner, and our first recipient of the Sylvia Kaufman Interfaith Leadership Award was Reverend Richard Rem. We've invited him to come back this year and asking him to come now to the podium to give us the invocation. Dick? There's steps over there. I'll help you either way.
No use creating a crisis. I'd hate to create a scene. I'd rather have us, for a few moments, be silent and listen to the voice of God. Let us pray. God of many names, gathered and in this beautiful setting, in your love, we sense our oneness, having traveled over respective paths, which we honor. We find we have arrived here together in one place. Not only physical space, but oneness of vision, oneness of spirit, embraced together in the freedom of grace and the wonder of love. We are grateful for this moment that gathers us, for those whose vision is being realized, for those whose faithful leadership challenges us to new frontiers of faith and service, and especially for the lives of those honored this evening who have embodied the beauty of being as one in your presence. As we gather around tables spread, we know your grace as we look into the face of the other and sense a bit of heaven on earth. O God of many names, receive our thanksgiving. Amen.
Please enjoy your dinner. All right, hate to break up all this interfaith discussion at your tables, but it is time to move on with the program. This is an Interfaith Leadership Dinner, and we will be recognizing some of the founders and people who have spent decades actually in building interfaith in our community. But before we do that, I want to also recognize some student leaders who have been working in interfaith on our campuses and in our high schools in the area. So please help me recognize some of those members that are here this evening. First, during 2012, the Year of Interfaith Understanding, Julie Mushing at the Kent Intermediate School District got a grant to work with high school students. She had 24 some high school students from various different religions as a student interfaith leadership team. And two of those members are with us tonight, so I'm going to ask Julie if you would stand. Come on, Julie. And Abraham. And the two students from that group was Abraham Sela, and Sarah McGeed. And as a follow-up to that effort, they also had an essay contest, and both Abraham and Sarah submitted essays for that. And I am pleased to tell you that Sarah was the first place winner for that. So congratulations, Sarah. Thank you. Now I've got a number of college students I want to introduce. So why don't we wait until we get them all up and then recognize them. But one of the things we've decided to do this year, after our very successful Year of Interfaith Understanding, was to move our interfaith efforts into college campuses. We believe that the future of interfaith is really with that next generation. And it's important that we develop the students and the next generation that will be responsible for that. They have the most to gain and the most to lose if we don't get this resolved. As a part of that effort, we're bringing Ibu Patel here next October, and I think some of you may have picked up a little flyer about that. Ibu has been a leader in the world, actually, but a major leader in this country in developing interfaith service projects on college campuses. And we've been very active with his Interfaith Youth Corps. And Katie Gordon, who has been with the Institute, with the Kaufman Interfaith Institute now for a little over a year, has been leading that effort. And I want to thank Katie for all the work that she's done, especially on campus. Some of us are beyond that stage, but Katie is prime for it, and she's doing a fabulous job, not only in our office as program manager, but in spending couple of days every week out at Grand Valley's campus working with students. And we have a number of those students with us, and so let me introduce them to you, and I'll have them stand as I do. Sam Lamp was the intern in our office. He's a graduate student with his Master's of Education with his College Student Affairs Leadership Program and worked with us this semester. Shelley Berseloff, who is the Communications Coordinator in our office. Shelley? Shelley is also the president of the Hillel Jewish Student Center on Grand Valley's campus and the vice president of the new interfaith club student organization called Better Together at GVSU. Then Derek Zeverink. Derek is the president of the Interfaith Student Organization Better Together and is a student in the College of Business where he will be a senior and studying marketing. And then we have Mohib Azim. Mohib is a student in the Padnos College of Engineering. He is the former president of the Muslim Student Association, and next week he leaves for a tour of duty with the Air Force. And then Amina Mohammed is the former president of the Muslim Student Association, and she is doing her student teaching in India this fall. So congratulate these wonderful students from Grand Valley. Thank you. We'll have you back in a few decades to get the big award, okay? We're counting on our students that we're working with as being future leaders in this interfaith effort. At this time, before we move into our major talk that Mayor Heartwell will be bringing, we want to hear a little bit of music. And I'm so pleased that Lillian Sigal suggested, or somebody actually else suggested it, but I twisted Lillian's arm, and she said that she would be happy to contact her daughters. And so we're going to hear from both of them, but first we're going to hear from Sabrina Sigal Falls, who is going to play on the Celtic harp on Eagle's Wings. So Sabrina, please. It's a great privilege to introduce and welcome to this evening's session Mayor George Heartwell. Not only has George Heartwell been a wonderful mayor these past 12 years in Grand Rapids and accomplished so much as mayor, but he's been a very special friend to Interfaith. Mayor Heartwell proclaimed that for the community that the year 2012 would be the year of interfaith understanding. And that began the community-wide effort that resulted in over 300 events in our community in the year of 2012. When we came to him again in 2015 and said we want to have a year of interfaith service, his office supported that, and he proclaimed again in a special session that we had actually held at September 11th at 9/11 in 2014 to declare 2015 would be the year of interfaith service. He's been a great friend for Interfaith, and on top of that, he has been friends of the honorees that we have. He goes way back with Ghazala and Lillian and Marchiene to the early 80s, or late 80s when all of this got started. And so often when they get a chance to get together, they make sure George is there too. So George is here as our mayor, he's here as our speaker tonight, but he's here as a friend of the honorees. So, George.
Thank you, Doug. That was a nice introduction. Remember Public Speaking 101? The first rule, never start a speech with an apology. Yep. Well, did you see the title tonight for this speech? It sounds fascinating, doesn't it? Tween, not even between, but tween, Scylla and Charybdis, navigating the interfaith channel. I would like to hear that speech someday. Doug asked me for a title probably a month and a half ago, and I hadn't even thought about the speech yet, so I said, yeah, between Scylla and Charybdis, navigating, blah, 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 blah. And I completely forgot about it, so what you're going to hear, so I had to come up with another title for this speech. So it is An Evolution of Consciousness, Interfaith, the Missing Link. Oh, okay, that sounds interesting too, yes? All right. Well, it's such a wonderful honor to be invited to deliver this address this evening, and the more so because of these three honorees, Lillian, Sigal, Marchiene, Rienstra, Ghazala, Munir. At one time or another, singly or collectively, these three powerful women have come into my life, bringing their light and their erudition and mostly the warmth of their love. Conscious of it or not, each has played her role in shaping my understanding of the world, my acceptance and appreciation of faith traditions other than my own, and my awareness of a realm of the spirit that is beyond the reality of my daily life. And if each of you have had such an impact on this one soul, then you surely have had an impact on countless other souls. I'm deeply grateful for having sojourned for a time with each one of you. Now, while expressing gratitude, let me not forget Sylvia and Richard Kaufman and Dr. Douglas Kenchie. The work being done through the Kaufman Interfaith Center or Institute at Grand Valley State University is truly extraordinary. The Year of Interfaith Understanding that Doug spoke of, coordinated by the Institute, has had a lasting impact and will have a lasting impact on our city. In the spring of 2013, I was invited to deliver the commencement address at Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary. And meeting with faculty prior to the commencement address, All they wanted to talk about was the year of interfaith understanding in Grand Rapids and how they might replicate it in Louisville. And this year, the Kaufman Institute has followed up with the year of interfaith service, having come to understand and appreciate each other's traditions. We've now put our shoulder to the task, ignoring faith differences to help those in need. People of many faiths working together on Habitat for Humanity homes or serving hungry families in the pantry system of Grand Rapids. And isn't it true that when faced with crying human need, doctrine and language, differences in style of prayer, even what name we use to call on the Almighty, fade to insignificance? Service is the best expression of interfaith. So this evening, let me build on that theme for a few moments and start with a story from the Desert Fathers, a monastic Christian community from the 3rd century. Abba Doulis, the disciple of Abba Basarian, told this story. One day when we were walking beside the sea, I was thirsty, and I said to Abba Basarian, "Father, I am very thirsty." He said a prayer and said to me, "Drink from the sea." The water proved sweet when I drank it. I even poured some into a leather bottle for fear of being thirsty later on. Seeing this, the old man asked me why I was taking some. And I said to him, "Forgive me, but it is for fear of being thirsty later on." Then the old man said, "God is here. God is everywhere." God is here. God is everywhere. God, the author of creation, the original source, the substance of which we are made, and the maker of our very substance, is in everything and is everything. And if that sounds heretical, pantheistic, or panentheistic, then I plead guilty as charged, and I remain unrepentant. For if God is here and God is everywhere, if God is everything and in everything, then there is no distinction between theisms, no rank ordering of truths, no one size must fit all, and surely no one and only right path to God. I've been deeply influenced in recent years by the work of Father Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Teilhard, a Jesuit priest trained in botany, wrote in the tumultuous aftermath of the voyage of the Beagle and the development by Charles Darwin of the theory of natural selection. Teilhard described an evolution of consciousness that takes place in what he called the noosphere, the region where matter and mind unite and evolve, moving ever toward a perfect unity in the mind of God. His important work, The Phenomena of Man, starts with a description of the causal event that brought matter into existence. Everything that would ever be came into being in that event billions and billions of years ago. All the gases, the chemicals, the solid material, all that would evolve into water and air and land and life forms. Every subsequent stage in the evolution of matter consists of the organization of that original material of the universe into ever more complex forms. So too, out of matter evolved thought. And thought became particularized by geography and by culture. Yet all thought, wrote Teilhard, is rising toward a maximum and ultimate level of complexity that he called the omega point. I understand the omega point to be the perfect mind of God, the ultimate purpose of the universe, the climax of history. So what does that have to do with interfaith dialogue and service? Well, this evolution in complexity of consciousness toward the omega point requires different expressions of thought, different modes of consciousness, interacting, intersecting, and each being subtly changed by the interaction, moving to a higher level of consciousness. Beyond the complexity of each individual consciousness, closer to the universal consciousness, which is the mind of God, and which is the purpose of evolution. When I bring my Christian understanding of God's nature together with Marchiene's different Christian understanding, or Lillian's Jewish understanding, or Ghazala's Muslim understanding, and if we're honest and open and truly interested in growing, then what will emerge is a stronger understanding, a richer understanding, a more perfect understanding. Seeking to know God through the diversity of religious expression leads us ultimately to a place of maximum comprehension of God's infinitely complex nature. Through that experience of knowing God more fully, we evolve in consciousness toward that omega point. Now, we do not consciously will this evolution any more than a one-cell organism willed itself into becoming a complex life form. We simply meet a person of a faith tradition different from our own. We experience her as a full and interesting human being, and we are gently drawn into a relationship. Perhaps it starts with curiosity, perhaps with shared experiences or interests. We experience this wonderful friend as wise and kind, faithful and loyal. And we can no more dismiss her deep faith beliefs than we could imagine life without that friendship. Now, service is an arena where these meetings occur and where these friendships can develop. Working side by side with each other, first, I understand that we share the same objective, caring for the poor and the marginalized. And then second, I see that we can laugh together, that we can laugh at things we say, at things we do. And next, I learn a little bit about you and your family and your work life and the things that matter to you. And I share the same information about myself. The breakthrough happens when we experience shared pain, when we weep together over a deep disappointment or a loss. Now, you have become fully human to me and I to you. The last thing that happens is perhaps we talk about our faith. The differences are almost irrelevant, for we've experienced the other person as an expression of God's love. So these new friends, Jew and Hindu, Muslim and Christian, Sikh and Buddhist, evolve in their understanding, drawing closer to the universal nature of God, in whom all history finds its apotheosis and all faiths find their home. And don't you see, this is the fulfillment of history, the purpose of life, the meaning and the climax of the universe. Maybe you didn't know when you showed up for a habitat build that you would be part of fulfilling the ultimate design of a compassionate universe, bringing about the conditions that lead to the omega point. Maybe you did it because, well, simply because you cared about poorly housed families and you thought it would be interesting to work with somebody from a different tradition from your own. But the power, the miracle, is hidden in the interaction, waiting to be discovered and cultivated, pregnant with the wonder to change the world. Interfaith understanding and co-service are the preconditions in an evolution of consciousness that God must have foreknown in the original causal event. What is happening in this room tonight, what has been happening and continues to happen all over the city as the result of the work of the Kaufman Institute, is nothing less than the climax of history. The bending of the universe toward the unity in the mind of God.
We now invite Sabrina Sigal Falls and Sharon Sigal to entertain us with a folk tune, Lone Wild Bird. It's not Golden Thread, I've been told, but it's a piece that the family has always enjoyed, and they are going to present that for us as we meditate on the powerful message we've just heard.
The ends of the earth are in thy hands, the sea dark, deep, and far off lands, where I am thine, I rest in thee. Great Spirit, come and rest in me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very lovely. We've come to the point where we give the Sylvia Kaufman Interfaith Leadership Award. And so at this point, I would like to invite Sylvia Kaufman, along with our honorees, Lillian, Sigal, Marchiene, Rienstra, and Ghazala, Munir, to join us on stage. You might want to come to the steps. In the early 1980s, Dr. Philip Sigal, rabbi of Congregation Ahavas Israel, was an early leader in the Interfaith Dialogue. Following his untimely death, his widow, Lillian Sigal, pursued his vision and collaborated with Reverend Marchiene Rienstra, a Christian minister and first female graduate of Calvin Theological Seminary. Soon they were joined by Ghazala Munir, a founding member of the Islamic Center and Mosque of Grand Rapids. The three of you began holding dialogue discussions in Lillian's home, and soon the dialogues expanded to include faiths beyond the Abrahamic traditions. By 1990, you established the Interfaith Dialogue Association, seeking to advance understanding among all faith communities, eliminate prejudice, foster appreciation, and promote friendship and trust among people of diverse ideologies and religions. To expand your vision, you organized annual conferences featuring scholars noted for their significant contributions to the interfaith dialogue. In so doing, you brought to Grand Rapids such interfaith leaders as Leonard Swindler, Houston Smith, Wayne Teasdale, Rafat Hassan. The Interfaith Dialogue Association initiated the Philip Sigal Memorial Lecture and created the weekly radio program Common Threads, hosted by the current president of IDA, Fred Stella, bringing various religious perspectives to the community via the radio station WGVU-FM. The IDA Speakers Bureau provides interfaith experts to schools, religious communities, and other organizations, and has supported the Interfaith Thanksgiving celebration since its founding in 2000. The IDA has now merged with the Kaufman Interfaith Institute and continues these community initiatives. Your early vision in bringing the expanded perspective to our community, and by founding the Interfaith Dialogue Association, you have contributed greatly to interfaith understanding and acceptance. It is thus with pleasure we present to you Lillian Sigal, Marchiene Rienstra, and Ghazala Munir this year's Sylvia Kaufman Interfaith Leadership Award.
It is a great pleasure. Can you hear me? Thank you. It is a great pleasure for me to be here tonight to receive this award. Although I moved from Grand Rapids about 17 years ago, Grand Rapids remains my home away from home. In 1989, when Marchiene, I call her Marty, and many others do, Ghazala and I gathered in my living room with several religiously diverse members of the Grand Rapids community to form the Interfaith Dialogue Association, little did we foresee how the interfaith movement would blossom into the growing and amazingly vital and dynamic organization that it has become in recent years. Thanks to the generous resources of the Kaufman Institute, the support of your visionary Mayor George Heartwell, and the very capable direction of Doug Kinchy. I think it is the jewel in the crown of Grand Rapids and a significant model for other cities to emulate. And we heard about that already from George. And I am very proud to have played a part in helping to plant the seeds of its growth. Unfortunately, many of the pioneers in the early years of the interfaith movement in Grand Rapids are no longer with us, such as Joel Beversluis, Dorothy Powell, Madhud Acharya, a Protestant, a Roman, a Catholic, and a Hindu, respectively. Time does not allow me to mention many more names of Jews, Baha'is, Buddhists, and many other open-hearted and open-minded souls who contributed to the project with great dedication. I also want to acknowledge my late husband, Rabbi Philip Sigal, whose dream of establishing an interfaith center in Grand Rapids has been virtually fully recognized, and whose interfaith work continues to be promoted by the Sigal Memorial Lecture. Fortunately, Fred Stella is alive and well. And unfortunately, I thought he would be here tonight, but he couldn't hop over from Italy. And so he has taken on the mantle of leadership of the Interfaith Dialogue Association, which is now, as you heard, under the expansive umbrella of the Kaufman Institute, to work for a world in which, as Hans Kung noted, no peace in the world without peace among the nations, among the religions, I should say. No peace in the world without peace among the religions. Finally, I would like to express my appreciation to Sylvia and Richard Kaufman Institute for honoring me with this award, along with my dear friends Marty and Ghazala. And I also want to thank my family from Philadelphia and from Indianapolis who are here with us tonight. And they are Sharon, as you've heard, and Sabrina with their husbands, David and Jim, and my granddaughter Mira is here, and also Michael and Emily Falls in Indianapolis with their newly born baby, Caden, who are here with us in spirit. And I thank them for their support and their love, and all others who have come here tonight, some dear old friends whom I've seen her and spoken to already tonight, and for everyone else who has come to celebrate this heartwarming and joyous occasion. Thank you all.
As always, Lillian covered the ground really well in a very organized, clear, and eloquent fashion. To which I have very little to add, except that the three of us, and I in particular, are very grateful to be so generously and kindly recognized after all these years. And it's nothing that I know we ever looked for. It's just one of those wonderful surprises that come from big-hearted, open-minded, great people like all of you here tonight. And even though Fred's absent, I hope some of you will pass on to him what I'm about to say, which is that Fred and others with him kept the Interfaith Dialogue going through many long, lean years. After Lillian left, and she was the great spark and the organizer, and I moved out of town, Ghazala stayed and kept working away. And for the dedication of those folks who, you know, every organization goes through these different stages, and who just kept it going with that determination and dedication until divine order brought along the Kaufman Institute and Doug and all the others of you who have given it a whole new and expansive life, which is so gratifying and so wonderful. And let me just end by saying that what I say, I know many of you could say, which is one of the great rewards of my life in Grand Rapids has been to enjoy the friendship of Lillian and Ghazala, a wonderful Jewish sister and a wonderful Muslim sister. They have enormously enriched my life, just as I know you who are here of various faiths enormously enrich one another's life. And I think that is one of the most deeply felt rewards for me. And I know many of you can echo that too. So thank you.
So as Marchiene said too, I have not too much to add after so eloquently Lillian just told us all about the organization and how it started and where it's going. But I'll just have a little story to tell first, just to make things a little lighter. And I hope everybody doesn't take it too seriously. But religion in my life was a ritual until I was 7 years old. At school, it was a co-ed school, and I was in a line, and a boy kept crossing and said he needs to stand in front of me. I kept fighting away, and his reason, he said, was because he was a boy, and God loves boys better. And that story of a little girl and a little boy could be any place in the world, any time. It wasn't just in Pakistan. And that's the first time when I started thinking about God and who he loves and who he loves more. And to this day, I guess, I am still searching. But I'll have to say that the fight I picked up with the little boy, I don't pick fights with the big boys anymore. I'm a little more sensible now. But to begin with, on a more serious matter, I thank Kaufman Interfaith Institute and its leaders, Sylvia and her husband, Richard, and really thank them for bringing us to this place. And I thank all of those who are present here today. Thank those who came up with the idea. Who else but our friend Douglas Kinchy to have this evening together. He has worked tirelessly to move the interfaith community forward. And I also thank my husband, sitting right here, Mazar, who has helped me go along with all that he could do for me, and my 2 children who are not here right now, but they are here in spirit, and I feel their presence in this room. I'm humbled to receive this award, especially when presented by our dear friend, Mayor George Heartwell, who has always done everything in his power to be a catalyst of change in our community. I'm honored to share this honor with my mentors, my dearest friends, and comrades in arms, Marchiene and Lillian, who guided me, encouraged me in all the roadblocks we faced, major or minor. And above all, I'm proud of my city, Grand Rapids, where I've lived now for 36 years, where all this became possible, knowing the religious climate here. So much has changed, so much has evolved. We have indeed come a long way due to the efforts of all of you present, and I say all of you. There is still much more to do, so far to reach, so many prejudices and fears to conquer. Inshallah, as we say in Islam, God willing, the Almighty, the merciful of the most merciful, will lead us to a more tolerant, accepting, and peaceful world. And I thank you all again.
The current president of IDA, Fred Stella, has been mentioned a few times this evening, and he didn't want to let this evening pass without sending his greetings to you. So this is from Fred. As the moment this is being read, I am most likely indulging in my cousin Gloria's homemade manicotti in her home just a bit north of Rome. Well, I can't say that I'm sorry that I'm here. Well, I guess I am sorry that I'm missing an event that is long overdue. I'm grateful for the Kaufman Interfaith Institute for publicly recognizing Dr. Lillian Sigal, Reverend Marchiene Rienstra, and Ghazala Munir for their pioneering efforts in the field of interfaith dialogue and cooperation. It has been such a privilege to know and work with these extraordinary women. The founders wisely knew that the great moments are often built from the ground up. I was introduced to IDA through a monthly dialogue group, which was one of several started in the early years. Meeting in private homes afforded us the opportunity to transcend the more academic side of interfaith and relate to one another as friends and confidants. Ghazala, Lillian, and Marchiene always enjoyed the opportunity to speak to someone who had had that aha moment when it comes to developing tolerance, acceptance, or appreciation for religions not their own. I must take this moment to mention my personal affection for each of these remarkable women. I am so pleased that life circumstances have allowed us all to remain great friends. While Lillian, Marchiene, and Ghazala no longer serve officially with the IDA, they are a constant source of inspiration and guidance to me. They are whom I want to be when I grow up. And now the founder of the Kaufman Interfaith Institute and the one who began in a similar matter in Muskegon, and the name of this award, Sylvia Kaufman Interfaith Award, now wants to say a few words.
I would like to congratulate our honorees and thank you so much for your dedication and service to interfaith dialogue and understanding. Dick Rem, who delivered that beautiful invocation, was our first honoree a year ago. And as always, Dick, your messages are very inspiring. Sitting next to him, we cannot overlook President Emeritus Don Lovers, who's been very committed to the Kaufman Interfaith Institute. And thank you, Don, for your involvement and support. Mayor George Heartwell, I've never been a resident of Grand Rapids, But I want to thank you for your service to this community and for your dedication and commitment to the Kaufman Institute and being a leader in these 2 years, Year of Interfaith Understanding and Interfaith Service. Now, where were we from here? This is completely spontaneous. I'd like to thank Katie Gordon for all of her work in interfaith dialogue and understanding, and Katie is now working on a master's degree in interfaith and will complete it online after work on weekends from Claremont University, and will complete it in December. Pretty fast. You haven't been there very long, but that's great, Katie. And finally, Doug. Doug, you've done just an outstanding job as director of the Interfaith Institute. And tonight, this wonderful crowd is an example of everybody's appreciation for your leadership and excellent work. This is a marvelous evening, and may you all come back next year. Thank you.
Sylvia is never one to slow down. And I have an announcement to make this evening that she may not even be aware of. Maybe you need to sit down. Sylvia and Dick spend their winters and summers in Aspen and have gotten very involved in the Aspen Institute, and in particular their program, Principled Pluralism, which was published a couple of years ago. And she led dropped the idea of the Aspen Institute to have an event at Calvin College in which the president of Calvin Seminary, and the president of InterVarsity USA, on stage in front of some 300 people, talked about their commitment to interfaith and to pluralism. And we were so pleased that she engineered that. But that wasn't all. She said that if this story is going to be told, it needs to be something that the Aspen Institute needs to develop as a follow-up to their Principled Pluralism project. So with her encouragement and with Dick's, the Aspen Institute sent Joe DeMott, who was the primary author of the Principled Pluralism document, and they produced a new book called Interfaith Engagement in West Michigan, a brief history and analysis. And it tells the story of how Sylvia Kaufman in Muskegon in the 1980s, and Ghazala and Marchiene and Lillian in Grand Rapids at the same time began this volunteer effort of interfaith engagement. And now how those stories have come together under the Kaufman Interfaith Institute. It's a wonderful story, and we got a pre-publication copies of this, and as you leave on the table, please pick up a copy of Interfaith Engagement in West Michigan. So again, I thank you all for being here, and particularly I thank Sylvia for being the one who gave us the name of the Sylvia Kaufman Interfaith Leadership Award, and for this year's honorees. Thank you so much for what you have done for Interfaith and for being with us. Thank you all for being here, and good night.